the church. Tonight my name is Charlie, and I'm one of the pastors here. I get to play the senior pastor role. We're glad you're all here tonight. And of course we're here to listen to our church member, my friend Dr. Diana Twiggs, who's going to share a little bit of her experiences of travelling to Poland on, I guess we call it a medical mission, to work with Ukrainian refugees there. So we're going to hear an awful lot of that tonight. Before we get going on that, there's a couple of things that I do want to say. Diana's going back in February, and we want to do whatever we can to support her in that, right? Yes. Yeah, those noise. So there's a couple of ways that we can do that here tonight. If you find your way to the front of the church tonight, there are some little postcards on a table right over here. And on those postcards, if you are internet savvy and you can work your phone with QR codes, if you take a picture of that QR code, it'll take you right to the GoFundMe website that Diana has set up for her trip. Also, what I do want to say to you tonight is that our mission committee here at Memorial are also right behind Diana and what she's doing. And so from our church family, from our missions fund, we will be matching funds tonight up to $1,000 in support of these efforts. Now, is there something else you wanted to add to that?
You know, I didn't put a link to my Amazon wish list, but for some people that's more fun, is to give things. So I think if you just search, I made it public, so I think if you search Diana's Ukrainian wish list or something on Amazon, it's kind of fun to get these fun little packages in the mail that have, toothbrushes in them and things like that. So if you like giving things, also glasses. If you brought eyeglasses tonight, you can just leave them up here or give them to me sometime. Those are something I'm kind of specifically asking for right now because everybody has a drawer full of them at home and they're easy to give.
Okay, also for donations tonight of $5 or more, you too can have one of these beautiful blue and yellow bracelets. A great way to remind you to pray for people of Ukraine, to pray for Diana when she travels, and a great way to start a conversation when someone says, hey, why are you wearing that? And you can say, well, let me tell you about my friend Diana. So that's a great way that we can support there. So, I don't think we left anything out there with the glasses, the bracelets, the donations.
You're on Facebook Live, so hopefully it's working.
Yeah, and we think we're on Facebook Live. So we say welcome to you wherever you're joining us from. Put in some comments there and then we can check out later and interact with you a little bit as well. So, Diana, I guess I have a few questions. You've seen them already, so you've had time to do your homework, and we're expecting great things here. So the first one is this. You obviously have had this a huge heart for Ukraine, a real sense of call in that direction. Ever since we first started to hear of the trouble that was taking place there. So just tell us a little bit tonight about how that developed in you.
So I think looking back, it was decades of sort of building up it indirectly. I have no family history over there. I'm not in any way directly connected. My family is very Western European, and there's nothing that draws us over there. So when I was probably 8 or 9, I remember seeing some after-school special or something, and hearing Russian. And I thought, that is the coolest language, I want to learn that. And I didn't. And so, but I just don't remember that. So when I went to college, I knew I'm studying Russian. I got to take Latin in high school, which actually prepared me well. But so I took a bunch of Russian in college, and when I did, that also, when you're learning a language, you do get immersed in culture, and you meet people, and I took enough where I was almost there with the language, but sadly did not travel, which was a giant mistake, and forgot all of it. So that was kind of buried in my mind, just this love for that part of the world. And knowing, even that, so this was in the late 80s, early 90s, when all of a sudden USSR was Russia, and the map changed every time you looked at it. So geography was fun back then, being a student, because it was always different. But I had this love for the people of that general region, and knowing that there was serious conflict in there, not all one country, not all one people. And so then, actually during the Olympics this last time, I decided that's it, I'm relearning Russian. So I did. So I started really intensely studying. So I was kind of mentally looked at that side of the world. And then when February 24th happened, I think I just felt this incredible sense of injustice that I think other world events, you've all probably had a specific thing that just grabbed you that you thought, that is wrong. And that is That is, I can't think of any other word than just an incredible injustice. And I was so mad. I was angry. I was angry at the whole situation, but the fact that selfishly, how am I ever going to go there now? Because you're messing it up for the rest of the world. And to see cultural and historic places destroyed for no reason, I was angry. And then I kind of started thinking, what can I do besides putting a flag on my Facebook page, maybe finding somebody to give money to? And I was actually talking to somebody completely unrelated, and he mentioned about going back to Afghanistan to help pull people out of there, and I thought, maybe I can go. So I started looking to see if there's a safe place or how could I go, did a bunch of research, and I ended up finding this organization that I now go with, this International Medical Relief. And they're very responsible fiscally, they're very safe, because it's actually on the Poland side of the border, so we're not in country, which I would love to be, but I know practically speaking, this is not really the great time to do that when there are huge needs in safer places. So I looked into them, found them, and was kind of mulling it over, and I've told Charlie this many times, it's his fault. Because he keeps preaching these sermons on calls, and I'd sit at the balcony and think, I was kind of thinking about that this week, but now you're saying I have to go? So I did. So I thought, I'm in a place in my life I can go. I never take, vacation time. I'm going to, and my kids aren't at home. They don't care. They are excited. They're, all in their early 20s, and they are excited about this for me. It's kind of fun to see them reflect on it. But so the very long answer to all that is that I just somehow I had this heart for it that just got torn apart in February, and I felt like I had to do something, and I can do something. I don't have to just do thinking about it and putting a flag in my yard, but I can really actually do something.
So, fast forward then to the summertime, and you start telling me that you've got this opportunity, you're going to take it. Is that August?
Yes.
Yeah.
First time was in August.
So you go over there in August for the very first time. Talk to us a little bit about the emotions of all of this sort of anger at the injustice, all this preparation, and then you land. Like what's going through your mind as you land and as you travel to your work site and your accommodations?
So, the whole time, of course, I'm pretty excited. I think this is finally happening. I'm finally getting to go. And so we get there and meet with the team that evening, and it was a fairly big team as it turns out. I thought that was typical, turns out not. So there's a team, so they have medical and non-medical folks on the team, both of which are very much needed. And so we met, and first thing we do is we dump out all of our donations and sort through things and do all that. And it was kind of this whirlwind of busyness at just their little office the night before, getting all ready. And so we're still kind of anticipating and getting to know roommates and that sort of thing, which is another story for maybe a few minutes from now. But the next day when we finally went, and we're all kind of suited up and we got our uniform scrubs on, when we go there and they took us to the shelter, and we first walked in, I was standing behind somebody, and we were all just quiet. When we first walk in, and there's this sea of cots, and this is their lives, and there's people there, and this happened to be the shelter that you could also have cats and dogs. It was interesting. But just to see that, I'll never forget that first thing. And he said the only thing that could be said, he said, holy. And we're like, that's the only thing you could think. And it was just jaw-dropping. And then you walk through and talk to people, and we were immediately at work. It was, the idea was we're going to get there, and then you go to this little tiny play space at the end, but we were called over to see somebody, so it was like instant work mode and language mode, which was interesting. But it was jaw-dropping, but I was so glad I was finally there and ready to get to work.
I'm going to throw in a question that we didn't have written down. So talk about your reactions whenever you saw this. What about as you started to meet Ukrainian people? Okay, so a lot of our media attention focuses in on the resilience and the strength of these people. Did you see that as you met these folks who had been displaced and moved to another country? What was their sense like?
There's a mix. I saw there's a lot of that, a lot. Primarily, there's women and children. The first two trips were very different in mood, but by and large, the younger kids, 10 and under, were good. They're running around, they're doing things, they're playing, they're very distracted by the kids' activities there. The middle teenagers are not good. They know what's going on, they are fully aware of what just got ripped away from them, they're not good. The adults are trying to hold it together for all the rest of them. And for the most part, they're moms of everybody, because some of these kids are now newly orphaned. And I would say, in general, extremely resilient. The second trip, there was a palpable shift midweek, because there was a new offensive that was going on, and you could just feel it become so much heavier. And what I'm getting now for the upcoming trip is our major issue right now is stress and anxiety. Not surprisingly, but even more than before. And they're asking me to get ready for that, and there's specific things I'm trying to do to get ready for that. Because it's not like we would treat somebody here. There's not the resources, there is the language barrier. We can't just do medications that can't be continued because the care is so sporadic. So they're resilient, but they've been through a lot, and there's nothing in sight now.
I think another question I might ask off the back of that is, in terms, like, you meet people who have been displaced from their home, they've ended up in Poland. Like, what happens next? Are they living in those cots for months at a time, or are they moved to other places?
So it varies. The idea is it's a stopgap. You get there, kind of regroup, and go into your next step. Some people are there for a night. They've made it across the border, they just need to rest, sleep in a shelter, undercover, and then go to their next place. And people are going wherever they have a connection, largely somewhere within Europe. I hear a lot of Germany, Norway, UK, and some other places, and those seem to be common next steps. Sometimes Canada, sometimes over here, just kind of depends on their personal resources and who they know. But some of them have been there a long time. I was not completely surprised to see people the second trip that I had seen the first trip, and that was a couple months apart. You're still here, I kind of thought you might be. And it's a huge variety of demographics that are in this, because a lot of, especially this organization that I'm going with, this is their only disaster response. Everything else they do around the world is underserved and third world sort of things. That is not what this is. Some of these people were professionals. They had very real, normal, and good lives. They were lawyers and doctors and teachers, and now they have literally nothing. And then there's people from all over the socioeconomic spectrum that are there and living under the same roof, which can be tense. And so a lot of them do try to move on. That's the goal. And the goal really is to get them plugged into the Polish healthcare system, especially if they have something going on. And we have ways to refer them there, but it is very strange, the Polish healthcare system. They are getting depleted. They just don't have anything that they need to be offering right now. They just don't have it.
Before we move on to invite you to tell a couple of stories, what I want to say to you who are here tonight, if you have questions that are bubbling up for you as we talk through, we're going to leave a little bit of space at the end for you to ask Diana those questions. So don't sort of have them, let them go, have them and keep them, and we'll get to ask them later. So Diana, obviously you've been there twice now, and you've met some people, some characters, I'm sure, some colleagues from throughout the world. Have you any stories that stick out that are worth sharing for us here tonight?
So will I be here till midnight? I can tell a lot of stories.
We're not here that.
I have a lot, and I was really debating on which ones to share. One is brief, and part of it's kind of funny, but part of it's not. There was almost the last person that we saw this last time. Basically thought she was having a heart attack, and in the end it turned out to be a panic attack, which is no good. But over there, the paramedics do a lot of the first contact medical stuff. They run the EKGs. I cannot describe this EKG machine. It looked like at an old Soviet era hotel or a hospital. It had, you've all probably had EKGs. the little stickers. Oh no, there's no stickers, there's suction cups. And so, somebody may have seen this. This was, I've never seen a thing like this. So on the legs, instead of the stickers, there's these clamps. And then on the chest sleeves, there's these little suction cups that kept sucking. I thought, you are kidding me. And we had a pretty good looking EKG, but I thought there's nothing disposable on this. This is the entire thing that's reused, because they can't afford stickers. So that was one story. It was just like a resource type of story that I've never seen anything like this. But I think I'm going to tell a shoe story. So I've told only a few people of this, and I think it's sort of worth sharing. Because some of my friends feel like we're doing too much over there. And I definitely don't want this talk to be political, but you cannot do too much for people that are in this situation. And I've had people say, oh, you're here for going over. No. I'm just going over to help for a week. And I come back to a house, and I come back to people that love me, and I'm safe. That's nothing. I was at one of the shelters. There's 2 main shelters we go to, and the one is a bigger shelter but with a tinier clinic space, so you're really crammed in there. And this was the second team, which was a lot smaller, which meant that I actually had a translator with me. And she actually wasn't technically a translator. She was a friend of our team leader, she's Ukrainian, has lived for years in the States, but was over there to help and visit her parents in Kiev, who were elderly, and making sure that they were okay. So I got to spend a lot of time getting to know her, which was fabulous, and she's a wonderful person, and so she was serving just to help translate. So we saw this guy who was there for a very minor medical thing, not a big deal, but he's there. So we're talking, and I'm kind of thinking, I think I can do something to help you, and it involved making a tourniquet out of some socks and whatever. So let me go get these things. So I got up to leave, and so I left the 2 of them for a few minutes, and I'm cutting up some socks, making a little thing I needed to make, and I come back and I hear them talking, and I heard them say the number 40, and I thought he was 41. And so I'm looking at his paper, I'm like, why are we saying that? So I get in on the conversation, I'm talking to him, and it was the shoe size he's talking about. All right, so turns out, it's not very big, right? This is a big guy. So his story, this guy lost his arm in 2014 when the first part of the war really started. He was over from the Donbass region. That all healed up. Over the years, he continued to be in resistance and helping over there. And then in February, when his region was getting aggressively attacked and invaded and locked down and nobody could leave, he knew ways to get people out. And so he was basically like a one-man underground railroad. And he was getting people out. And then he got caught. And he was captured, and he was beaten and tortured every day for 20 days. And escaped. And then he walked, and I verified this number with him 3 times. He walked 1,000 kilometers from where he was over to the border by himself. And so he was there, he had just arrived the day before. So he was just there, having walked on these little skin-soled shoes 1,000 kilometers to get to safety. So he's over there, and he was not complaining. He was just talking, just telling his story, and telling Mila, I'm kind of concerned, I think I'm going to go to Norway next, but these are the only shoes I have. I was like, Dimitri, you seriously wear a 40? I said, I wear a 42. So I put your foot up by mine. So we did, and so I took off my shoe. I said, see if this fits you. So it fit him. I said, all right, I need my shoe today, because I'm working. I said, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to need it anymore. I've got more back at the hotel. So I'm going to come find you. Where's your cot? So we went to see where he was staying. And so at the very end of the day, when I was sure that we were done, going to the cars, it's like, hang on, Neil and I have to do a thing. So we went, we found the guy. He was sleeping. I felt bad. I had to wake him up. But gave him the running shoes because they were good soles. And for me, they were sprung out. I don't need them. I bought an extra pair on purpose. And didn't know that was why I bought them. But I knew I'd need them somewhere. So I gave him the shoes. And so he had better shoes to go on. And I was walking out. It was kind of a cold snap day. And our team leader was all very concerned about my sock feet and everything. I was like, I'm going back to the hotel. I'm going to be in this car for a few minutes. And they might not like it in the hotel, but I'll be in the elevator before they catch me. So that story that guy was a hero. He was a hero for what he did and suffered through, and but he finally said, I've had enough, I gotta get out of this country for a while. So to me, that was just being in the right place at that moment, at the right time, understanding the need, and just saying, well, let's just do it. What else are you gonna do?
That's pretty powerful. Let me ask about your understanding of this whole crisis and how that has developed over the last year and based on your experiences. So you talked a little bit at the start about the sense of anger and injustice, but I think I know also you've had some conversations with other people and that has developed your understanding. Would you tell us a little bit about some of that?
When I was growing up, my dad always said, if we would just be nice to each other, we'd solve all the world's problems. And so I always had that in the back of my mind, that why aren't people just nice to each other? I mean, we all have our bad days and our bad moments, but when it's on a scale like this, and there is, to my mind, no reason for this death and destruction, it's just mind-boggling that it can go on and still goes on. And I just don't see how it's going to end without it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I certainly don't have any big political insight into any of this. I just want to help the people that are there. But I know that it's expensive. But if we don't do it, this is why Poland is helping so much. I mean, if Ukraine falls, Poland's next, and they know it. And they absolutely know that Ukraine is fighting their war. So, it's expensive, but I don't think we have a choice.
So, you're sitting in church one day, preacher preaches a sermon, you have a sense of call. How has your faith journey developed as a follower of Jesus Christ? Talk to us about how your own faith journey has developed in all of this.
I think some of it is just being open to listening and not saying no, and being ready to figure out what a call means and how it can really be implemented, and not just putting things off. Because it's easy to say it's not the right time, maybe I'll do it later, but I couldn't find any excuses for not going, and it seemed like every time I would try to put something, should I go, should I not go, in the back of my mind, something else would be right in front of me on, you have to go. And I think going over there, particularly the second time, was at a time when there was all the nuclear talk. And, my parents, my dad in particular, was very unhappy that I was going at that time, very worried about everything. I thought, you know what? I'm not afraid. I mean, maybe something will happen. I don't think it will. I'm going. And I think it's just putting that fear aside and just saying what's the worst that can happen? Not something good, but I'm prepared for if it's the worst thing that can happen, it happens. But I don't think it will. But it does. That's been the choice that I've made to try to help people. And I don't think I'm sacrificing anything great. I don't. And maybe that's part of it, is realizing that it's not a big deal for me to go do this. It's just getting on a plane and going and helping people and coming back. It's not that difficult.
So third trip in under 8 months, coming up next month. You've talked a little bit already about what you're hearing in terms of the stress and anxiety. How are you expecting that to impact your work? And are there other changes or things that you've heard about that you're expecting it to be different? Or will it be more the same?
I think there will be a lot of the same. Everybody, they're living in a closed environment, so respiratory stuff is everywhere. Everyone's sick all the time. So there's that, but figuring out what to do with the anxiety, they do have some therapists there, but there's not enough. So what I've practically done is I've made like a stress handout, and I sent it to our team leader, and she's going to translate it into Ukrainian so we can have a Russian side and a Ukrainian side just as a handout, because I'm going to say the same thing over and over all day. So I'm hoping to do maybe either a workshop on stress or something like that, but I think it's going to be, on the one hand, more important to spend more time listening to their stories. On the other hand, our team is very small this time. Like, pretty much it's just me and a physical medicine rehab doctor. So I'm going to be kind of busy. But I need to figure out how to, that's one of the things I love about going over there is there's no clock. I never know what time of day it is. There's no schedule. There's no billing. There's very little documentation. You just help people. And I knew a couple times, if I looked up, there was going to be a long line, so I'm not looking at the line, because we'll get to everybody. And you're going to get the same time as everybody else, and the day will end when the day ends. And so that's something I look forward to, is having the time. I'm a little concerned about how that'll be managed, but also it was that when that second week, when that mood shifted, it was hard on the team. And there's a daily debriefing at the end. Remember that day we're sitting around and our team leader just said, "You guys just need to go get dinner. I mean, you need to just get out of here. I mean, you've had a big day." And I think every day is going to be a big day this time. So I think I anticipate it being harder, even though I kind of know more what to expect. You never really know what to expect.
It sounds like you need a team chaplain. Just saying. So, those of us who are not medical volunteers, how can we help and make a difference from a distance in this Ukraine crisis?
Well, I will answer that, but talking about the non-medical, I have to tell this story. The first time, our team was 14 strong, which was great. There were 5 doctors, and then all these non-medical people. And the one guy, he was hilarious. He was a new grad from college, Tyler. And we're introducing ourselves the first time. "I'm Tyler, I'm just a non-medical, and I'm looking for a job." And we're like, "What do you mean just a non-medical? We need you." And so after the first day, I was like, "Tyler, you are the camp counselor. These kids, you're great with these kids. You are fantastic." And, the team, we go out to dinner, and we all get to know each other very well. And I was talking to him one night after walking. I said, "You need to just be open to whatever these experiences are and learn from all this stuff. You're going to find something great to do." He is now employed by IMR as their volunteer coordinator. I was so excited to see that. So, but as far as what everybody else can do, I mean, obviously there's financial gifts because it is expensive to go. It's, there's a fee associated with the trip, which pays for our very much negotiated lodging and stuff like that, but also buys a lot of equipment. And they are able to do much more cost-effective buying of antibiotics and other things like that. Because I looked into that, I thought maybe I'll just buy a bunch of stuff. It makes much more sense for me to just give them the money and have them to do it because of their purchasing power. So they buy equipment and things like that. But taking just not working for a week to go, I mean, there's that too. So it's so financial gifts are good. I do carry over 100 pounds of donations every time, and I weigh my 2 suitcases, and they're right at 50 pounds. And anything I can think to bring over that will be helpful, we can leave there. I sometimes get a lot of wound care sort of things, which aren't necessarily needed by us, but they're needed on the front. So anything that's hospitally that we bring over that might be used in the clinic, it gets used other places, and it gets shipped to the right places. So I'll just stuff that suitcase with over-the-counter things and wound care and glasses and some kid supplies, books and crayons and just all kinds of stuff. And probably at the very end, I'll do last-minute shopping to make sure it's completely stuffed. I'll buy some things over there once I'm maxed out on space, but I think praying for the mission, for me personally, if you will, but for the whole mission and for the whole situation. I also think too about our team leader who works every day. I mean, she works 6 days a week, and for weeks on end, she doesn't get a break. She does this all the time. As soon as she's got to know one team and we're all gelled, we leave, and a new team comes, and she has to figure out how to get everybody working together and who's there, what types of people are there, how is this going to work, what illnesses or what things are coming up. Also, the shelter gets moved all the time. They kept the one main one, they kept moving buildings because of different contracting things and whatever it was. So it was very disruptive. The last time I was there, from the main clinic, semi-permanent area to the offshoot clinic, was an entire kilometer. And when you're sick and it's 20 degrees outside, you're not going to want to walk that walk. So I think it's just anything that you guys want to do, it's just being here. And the other thing is telling people that that this is still going on, and that's part of why I go too, is to remind people it has left our news cycle largely. It is not over. I mean, there are horrible things. There was an entire apartment building that I hope made most of our news, bombed into oblivion and non-existence last week. Scores of people were killed, and they were just laying in their beds at night. There was a particular story on a couple that had fled there. They'd already evacuated to what they thought was safe there, and then they got killed in their beds. So, I mean, these things are still happening all the time. And one of the big continued fears over there for people who do know what they're talking about is that the civilian threat is as big as it's ever been. I mean, you don't know where you're safe. They will go to sleep oriented so that if their windows blow out, they're less likely to have glass shatter on them. I mean, you have to go to sleep thinking about these things. There's just no sense of safety. So awareness is another reason why I go just tell people don't forget this.
Thank you for telling us here tonight. One question that I always like to ask people in any conversation like this is the big one about their own self-awareness and their role. Like, what are you learning about yourself in this whole journey?
I hope I'm not taking my safety for granted. I mean, I feel like we live in such a safe place, and of course you never know. But everything I look around at, I think I'm so grateful for, friends and security, and my refrigerator has food. If it doesn't, I go to the store is stocked, and I, can buy the food. So I think just a sense of gratitude for the life that I've been given, and feeling the need just to share more of that with people and to try not to be selfish, because I think probably part of us has a little bit of just selfish nature. We just do, and I see people that give everything of themselves, and I'm kind of jealous. Like, how do you do that? I mean, I want to be able to do that. So that's probably the big thing, is being grateful and trying not to sweat the small stuff. So it is hard. I mean, I think a lot of you go on missions and you come back and you feel like people are complaining about stupid stuff. You just want to say, come on, really? Come on. And that is hard to bite your tongue and not say that to people.
Yeah, I imagine it would be. So, I want to ask, are there any questions from the floor? Here's how we'll do this. If you have a question, just put up your hand. We'll ask it. I want to repeat it into the microphone just so that we can make sure our people on Facebook Live hear that. So I'm going to come to Dr. Bob first and then Rick right beside him.
Yeah, in terms of the people who want to move on to the United States, is there anyone from immigration or any other U.S. agency that is trying to facilitate this, or are these people more or less on their own trying to migrate?
So let me repeat it so that we make sure we hear it. So the question is, Dr. Bob's asking, for anyone who wants to try and get to the United States or make it to the United States as part of this, are there any avenues and people who are working to that end in terms of refugees?
So my limited knowledge on that is I know there are some non-governmental agencies that are helping, and they're looking for family sponsors and things like that, because I do believe that you need a family sponsor to come over, and there are a few that are trying to plug people into that. I also know that early on in this, which was actually one of the ways I got involved up front, is there is a Slavic church in Jacksonville called Living Stream, and they had several dozen families just show up on their doorsteps in, I believe, March, maybe April. So they have found ways to start that process, and it's kind of a big legal mess. So I don't know the exact answer to your question, but I think the key is you've got to know somebody, you've got to have a sponsor or a family or some place to go once you land.
I believe also in terms of having refugee status and fleeing from danger, there may be avenues, and from my limited knowledge, various countries of the world agree to receive their quota of refugees, and I know in Ireland, for example, there were a number that made it there. So
yeah, Ireland did a lot.
Yeah, good. It's because we're nice. Rex.
You mentioned about the state of the Polish medical equipment. We all know that the U.S. is supplying a lot of arms indirectly to Ukraine. Do you know, are you aware of any medical equipment being supplied to Poland or Ukraine to help them in their regards?
Well, so the question from Rick was regarding medical supplies in Poland. In the United States, of course, and other countries in the world are supplying arms for this war effort. Do we know, are there other medical supplies, for example, being shared?
I don't know of any from on a government standpoint, but there are a lot of agencies that are doing that. So, so the answer is I don't think our government is, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't heard that we are. But one, just kind of expanding on the lack of resources over there. So the kind of second big shelter that we went to, the last time we were there, when we first got there, this Polish doctor took us around and basically gave us the lay of the land and gave us the update on what was going on. And he is the glue holding that shelter together right now medically. That's not his job. He has a job, and that's not it. But he spends all of his available time there trying to see people. He doesn't go into the clinic area. He walks around and sees them where they're staying. And he primarily works in a hospital, and he's constantly trying to call people to get anything he can. Antibiotics, you can almost not even get in a Polish hospital, at least at the time of when I was last there. So they were just desperate for any medications at all, particularly antibiotics. So there is equipment that's needed, but there's really more just supplies, like wound care and medications and things like that. So I think that is the main ask right now is consumables, rather than just like the like a ventilator or something like that. That's not, from what I'm hearing, not a big need right now. It's the other things.
Thanks, Emma. Yes.
What about food?
What about food?
So I'll answer that broadly because it's kind of a broad question. So another organization that I have to mention is World Central Kitchen. They are amazing. If you hear of any bad thing going on in the world anywhere, they are there feeding people. They were in Fort Myers after the hurricane. They've been in various areas of Ukraine. They're in the shelters and they feed breakfast and lunch there. They have fed millions and millions of meals. And they're another organization that I truly believe in. They're feeding people, and if you're not being fed, that's the basic. So if you're asking about for the Ukrainians, that's one answer. And just the amount of sharing. People there look out for each other, and there are some places that do have crops that are being grown. And when Kherson got liberated, Kharkiv got liberated. There were watermelons everywhere because that's their big thing is they grow watermelons, and all of a sudden you see watermelons everywhere. So that was kind of the symbol on we got liberated. So there's a rich agricultural community there, or industry, and it's still there. It's the exporting that has been throttled, but they are still growing food. Now a lot of the fields have been torched, but a lot have not. So there is still food in the country. It's just distributing it is super difficult. So if you're asking about our food, we're fine. We actually kind of don't eat lunch there, but it's okay.
Mary?
I noticed that the Red Cross and also Salvation Army, are you seeing them there also? Some of the American charity organizations feeding or helping to do that?
So this question is about other organizations such as Salvation Army and Red Cross. Have you seen their presence there?
Not where I've been, but it's kind of specialized where we are, because we're not in country. We're on the Poland side of the border. So it's specifically what we're doing is medical care for displaced Ukrainians, either in the shelters or some in the community. Like we set up a pop-up clinic at one center, which was really kind of fun and a different thing. But so they're not in that setting. They may well be like Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders is in country and they're doing incredible work, but they're long term. You can't just go be with them for a week. You're there. It's a very long term commitment to be with them. So I don't know what Red Cross and Salvation Army are doing. They may be doing something great that I just haven't heard of.
Well, I'd say from a United Methodist standpoint, of course, Encore are very much present and working through local United Methodist churches that are part of the country there. So there are other organizations. Kathy?
How do you go about sponsoring a family, and is that a possibility that anybody can do that?
Question is, how might we folks go about sponsoring families? Is that possible, and how do we go about doing that?
I think that answer changes over time, and that's actually probably one of the first conversations I had about Charlie is, hey, we want to sponsor a family. And it turned out to be way more difficult than I thought it was going to be, because for the most part, they want to be with their community. And so when I was in contact with Living Stream down in Jacksonville, pretty much they said, we're good, we just need funds. So they, nobody wants to come over to another country at all under duress, but then go live with somebody that they can't communicate with. So sponsoring them in like financially sponsoring them or actually housing them are different things. And I tried to go through. I went to not Lutheran. Is it Lutheran services? Yeah, Lutheran services in Jacksonville. It has done a lot of refugee work, like Liberian and other countries over the years. And nobody really had their act together at that time. We're just in this particular area not seeing a big influx of people coming here. That doesn't mean there's nobody. There's just, they tend to kind of find their community. So, and it was all in help. And that was the first way I thought I wanted to help. And it just really didn't work out. So it's kind of a vague answer, and maybe not a very satisfying one.
Thank you. Amen.
Doug and I are leading a group. We financially sponsor a family over there. My older brother, who was 66, actually lived in Ukraine, in Kyiv. And Sergey is the dad's name, Julia is the wife, and then they have a 4-year-old daughter named Val. But I met them over WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. I guess I want to say, knowing Sergey and his family via WhatsApp has changed our lives. We've got a group of about 10 people right now who give me money every month, and I send it over to Sergey and his family, and then he shares it with others. So if anybody is interested in directly, we know money goes directly to him. Because that was the concern when you send money over blindly, but it's a direct bank deposit. So if there's anybody interested in supporting this family or others, please let us know.
Thank you. And for those watching, that was not a question, that was an offering of another way to support Ukrainian families. Thank you.
So another thing we did kind of early on too, where we just wanted to help in some way, is rented a no longer existent Airbnb, because the money goes straight to the person who owns the place.
Yes.
I was actually in Ukraine most of December, and I've been going since 2015 as part of medical teams. As far as the food question, there's a place in Wisconsin called Grain Train that supplies a lot of food, and the people in Holland are supplying an incredible amount of generators and hospital equipment, and I've talked about a few things afterward.
Thank you. So that was information on an organization based out of Wisconsin called Grain Train, who are helping out with food in the Ukraine. And in answer to a previous question, which was about movement of some medical equipment, which I think you said was coming from Holland, or Dutch people. So
they make 2 trips a week.
Wow.
It's an 18-hour drive, and they drive over, they drop it off. And I was in eastern Ukraine for a lot of the time, and then they turn around and drive back.
Wow. Thank you for that. Any other questions for Diana?
Dr. Twiggs, I'm wondering, any doctors in this position, but that deal with sick people, what do you do to stay healthy? Because not only physically are you vulnerable, but emotionally as well.
So the question is, how does Diana look after herself physically and emotionally when faced with what she's dealing with?
That's a good question. I just try to take care of myself physically. I run, I try to eat right. I don't sleep enough, but the other things I try to do pretty well. And do things that I enjoy, music. I have to do that or I will go crazy. Learning right now, it's funny. I told my Russian teacher one day, I said, our 3 o'clock Skype on Friday, I will not miss. Because it's a different part of my brain, and it's hard as stink, but it's different from what I do any other time. And so it's actually relaxing, even though it's really hard. So, that's part of it, is keeping, mentally active and all that. But, as far as taking care of emotions, as part of why I run off the crazies. It is something that the team over there keeps as a high priority, is looking out for our mental health, and that's why that one day she just said, we are not even going to do much of a debrief, just you guys go eat dinner, just go take a walk and be with each other. So it's just being aware. I do a lot of journaling on the way back. I do a little bit there, but I write a lot on the plane when I come back. I sometimes remember to write on a blog, sometimes it's months between, but writing is a good outlet for me. And sometimes I think maybe somebody wants to read the story, maybe they don't, but yeah. So, and one other thing I kind of wanted to mention too, just on a complete sidetrack, just culturally, sometimes I'll hear people talking about, either, not even the situation, but just the countries over there. And I think it's important for us to remember that they are not all one country. I heard somebody talking about hearing a music group from Kiev one time, and this was great, they did that, whatever, and then the Russians did that and whatever. No. Ukrainians are not Russians. You can't say that. And I think that's what this is all about too. And Belarusians are not Russians. And all those countries are very distinct. They have their own languages and cultural heritage and history, and it's hard for us to respect that, because we don't learn that in school. We learn Western European history. We do not learn their history. And it's fascinating. It's really interesting if you want something new to read about. But I think being sensitive to words, that Ukraine is a country. It's not the Ukraine. It is Ukraine. And it's the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian language, but Ukraine is a distinct country. And I think words matter. But we do our best. Also, people, slip of the tongue, it's not intentional. But I think it's part of education too, just spreading that like that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions out there? Okay, Rick, one more.
Okay, at the very beginning, you mentioned that your children were very excited you were going over there. Even though they may not be trained, is there any interest in them joining you anytime?
Question is about Diana's children who expressed excitement for her. Have they shown any interest in, was it being part of this or following in the footsteps? Is that, yeah?
So my daughter is going to commission as a second lieutenant in the Army in 3 months. And she said, I'm jealous that you got to go before me. So the other two are not in the position to do that at the moment, but all of her friends, that's where they want to go. They used to want to go to the sand, now they want to go east.
Thank you. Okay, and so if we've got no more questions out here, the best thing that I can do is remind you that Diana needs all the support you can give to her, okay? So if you've got a cash gift or a check tonight, you can drop that into our baskets. If you want to make a gift over the web, get yourself a postcard and go through the QR code to the GoFundMe there. And if you are given $5 and up tonight, you can grab one of the cool bracelets there. I think the other thing that I would love to do, first of all, is to, let's say, thank you to Diana together for being here tonight. And I'm sure, Diana, you want to thank these people for coming and hearing your story.
Very much. I really appreciate this good turnout. And if there's somebody you want me to come speak to, I can talk all day. So just let me know. I'd be happy to come talk to a group or you or anybody.
And the last thing I want to do is, Diana said that we can pray for her, pray for Ukraine, and so we're just going to take a moment now to bow our heads, and I'll lead us in a short prayer if that's okay. And gracious God, we give thanks that you never leave nor forsake those that you have created. You are with us wherever we go. You are with Diana as she travels. You are with those who are struggling and suffering in Ukraine. So Lord, through those who go, those who show up and offer their time, their talent, their kindness and their generosity, Lord God, would you, through those actions, be with the people of Ukraine in these hardest of times for them. And Lord, we are bold enough to pray, to continue praying for peace in that land, and that those who would act aggressively in that situation, that you would put them back and that you would bring peace once more there. All this we ask, as we ask also a blessing upon Diana as she travels next month. We're asking it in the name of Jesus.